Today on Harry's Home Garage, we're going to be cracking into this 1997 Honda CR-V. It's got bad valves. It's got over 400,000 K. The valves were probably never adjusted by the previous owner. I've adjusted them and got the head cleaned up, but this one, it's so bad that I've got to redo it. So I've grabbed another head and we're going to put it on this thing. So I got a bunch of the engine torn apart here. I'm going to show you what's been taken off so far and what we still got to do. First of all, we took off the power steering pump and we moved it aside. We also moved the vacuum pump aside here. We got the belts off for the power steering pump as well as the alternator and the AC here. I moved the power steering reservoir as well. I just put some wire on it and tied it out of the way for now. I had to get underneath to loosen off the bolts for the alternator because it's on the back of the block here. So I went down underneath here to do that. You can see the crank there as well. I pulled this plastic out of the way, managed not to break anything. I noticed that this motor mount is basically shot. It's probably from the engine vibrating too much because of the bad valves. So I'm going to have to get another motor mount as well for this thing. The next things we got to do is we got to unhook all of the vacuum lines, the throttle cable, the air intake, all of the power lines that are coming to the different things, all of the electrical hookups here. And then we got to pull this off and we'll have a look after the valve cover is off. We'll spin the engine around to get it to top dead center before we start taking it apart any further underneath of there. We also got to drain the coolant out and take the distributor off and some other plugs for sensors and hoses on this side of the engine. We're going to pull the head out with the intake manifold attached to it, and when it's on the table, that's when we're going to swap the intake manifold onto the new head and put it all in as one piece, just because it's easier to do it like that. got the distributor off. I've got all the hoses off the side here off. I noticed that this hose was not on correctly. It was sitting like this, so I'm gonna have to find another piece of hose for this, because this piece of hose is pretty much shot. It's like bulging and it's all mushy in the middle here, and that's not good at all. I got the fuel line off, the air intake off, all of the plugins for the fuel rail and any other plugins that were attached around here to any of the sensors. They've all been taken off. I've taken off, there's 2 bolts that are down here in the back attached to this bracket that's right here that I'm pointing at, that hold the air intake on. So if you took your head bolts off and realized, like, well, I can't get this thing out, what the heck's holding it in there? There's 2 12mm bolts that are going from the bottom up there into the air intake to hold it down and brace it off that bracket that's just right there past my finger right there, that black thing right there. Alright, so everything is off over here as well, this side. There was a bunch of plugs that came right off the alternator, which makes sense. And yeah, so the distributor is just sitting over here out of the way. Air hose is just sitting out of the way. Remember to disconnect your battery. I did that right before I started all of this stuff. And so now we got to get the exhaust manifold off. The coolant has drained out as much as going to come out, which is all we need to come out, just to get the top part out here, out of the head. So once this intake, or exhaust manifold rather, is taken off, we can pop this, we'll turn it around at the crank, put it at top dead center, and then we can start taking apart the top of the head, taking all of the caps off of the cams that are on here, and then removing the head bolts and lifting the head off of the car. Alright, so I got the valve cover off. In theory now I should be able to undo the tensioner here and pull the belt off, and then I can take the cams off and take the head off. But I'm going to call the video for tonight because it's getting pretty late here. So remember to like and subscribe, Harry's Home Garage. Hit the notification button so you get updates when the newest videos come down. And check out my new website made by Becker Design and Media in Saskatoon. It's up. It's got all my Twitter and my YouTube in the same spot. Thanks for watching.